This story begins with a completely ordinary and slightly awkward teenager named Rick Riker. One morning, he is running late for school and desperately chasing after his bus. Somehow he manages to stop it and climb inside, but the moment he steps in, it becomes painfully clear that no one is happy to see him. No one offers him a seat, because the truth is that Rick is not liked by anyone at school. Eventually, he sits down next to his only friend in the entire school, a boy named Trey. While sitting there, his eyes fall on Jill Johnson. Rick has a huge crush on her, and he keeps turning back again and again just to look at her. Trey tries again and again to make him understand that a popular girl like Jill will never like an outcast like him, but Rick refuses to listen. He just keeps staring at her, completely lost in his hopeless daydreams. After some time, the school bus arrives at an animal research center, where the students are supposed to see some rare animals. Even here, Rick tries his best to impress Jill. He walks up to her and confidently claims that he is a great photographer and can take amazing pictures of her. However, photography inside the research center is strictly prohibited. Ignoring the rules, Rick secretly takes a picture of a bird, but as soon as the camera flash goes off, the bird accidentally catches fire. No one around realizes that Rick is responsible for it. Panicking, Rick tries to put out the fire by stepping on the bird, but the bird somehow escapes and flies straight onto Lawrence, who happens to be Jill's boyfriend. Lawrence immediately loses his temper and is about to attack Rick, but just then, Uncle Lou arrives. Uncle Lou is Lawrence's uncle and one of the major investors of the research center. He asks Rick about his parents, and Rick sadly explains that they passed away many years ago and that he now lives with his aunt and uncle. Hearing this, Uncle Lou becomes slightly emotional and quietly walks away. But as soon as Uncle Lou leaves, Lawrence starts bullying Rick again. He shoves him hard, and Rick falls straight into a pile of animal waste. In front of everyone, he is completely humiliated and covered in filth. Trying to clean himself, Rick picks up a nearby container thinking it contains water, but in reality, it is a chemical solution. Without knowing what it is, Rick accidentally pours the entire chemical all over himself. He has no idea that the solution was specially designed to attract male animals. Within seconds, animals from all directions start running toward him. Some jump on him, some grab onto him, and complete chaos breaks out everywhere. The students standing nearby are shocked and laughing at the same time, while Rick once again becomes the center of embarrassment in front of everyone. In the middle of all this chaos, a dragonfly suddenly flies in and bites Rick on the neck. But surrounded by so many animals climbing and jumping all over him, he does not even notice the tiny bite or realize what just happened. That single, unnoticed moment, however, is about to change his entire life forever. Slowly, more and more animals keep getting attracted toward him, making the situation even more awkward and humiliating. Instead of helping his friend, Trey pulls out his phone and starts recording the entire scene. His plan is simple: upload the video on YouTube and make money from it. Meanwhile, poor Rick is left there as the biggest joke in front of everyone. After some time, the trip finally ends, and all the students return home from the research center. By now, Rick is completely exhausted and weak. Somehow he manages to reach home, where his aunt and uncle are waiting for him. His uncle casually tells him to feed the fish. Rick walks toward the fish tank, but suddenly he feels nauseous and throws up directly into the tank. He is so drained and tired that he barely reacts. Without saying much, he drags himself to his room and collapses onto his bed, falling asleep instant. At the same time, the story takes a major turn. Uncle Lou is shown inside a laboratory, surrounded by a team of doctors. It is revealed that he is suffering from a deadly illness, and according to the doctors, he does not have much time left to live. But Uncle Lou is not someone who accepts defeat. For years, he has been secretly working with a scientist on a special machine that could cure him. Ignoring the doctor's warnings that the machine is incomplete and dangerous, Uncle Lou orders it to be activated. He forcefully gets inside the machine despite all objections. As soon as the machine starts, a loud blast echoes through the lab. The people present begin to laugh, assuming the experiment has failed. One of the scientists even mocks Uncle Lou, but then suddenly, something terrifying happens. Sitting inside the machine, Uncle Lou grabs that scientist's hand and begins draining his life energy. Within seconds, the scientist collapses and dies. In that moment, Uncle Lou realizes the truth. The machine actually works. He understands that as long as he continues absorbing the energy of other humans, his illness will never be able to kill him. And from that point on, Uncle Lou becomes far more dangerous than ever before. His illness has turned him into a monster who must kill in order to survive, and there is now no limit to what he is willing to do. On the other side, Rick is still at home sleeping, unaware that the very same day, his school is hosting its annual function. The chief guest of the event is the world-famous scientist Stephen Hawking. He delivers an inspiring speech to the students, explaining how, despite being physically weak, he never gave up and always kept himself motivated. The students listen carefully, completely focused on his powerful words, but Rick's attention is somewhere else entirely. Even during the event, he is busy trying to impress Jill. In the middle of all this, he accidentally bumps into Lawrence again, instantly triggering his anger. Suddenly, something strange happens. Rick's hand gets stuck inside a nearby sink, and no matter how hard he tries, he cannot pull it out. When he finally applies force, the entire sink breaks off and crashes straight onto Lawrence. Furious, Lawrence runs toward Rick to beat him up, and Rick immediately starts running to save himself. While escaping, he collides with a heavy man, and this time something even more bizarre happens. Rick's hands stick to the man's body. He struggles desperately, but his hands simply will not come off. When he finally manages to free himself, the man's clothes tear off along with him, leaving everyone standing there in complete shock. No one understands what is happening to Rick. It becomes clear that something unusual has awakened inside him. Terrified and confused, Rick runs out of the school. One question keeps repeating in his mind. Does he really have superpowers? To find out the truth, he tries climbing the wall of a nearby building. The moment he touches it, his hand sticks to the surface, and he effortlessly begins climbing upward. Seeing this, Rick is stunned. Now he is convinced that something extraordinary has happened to him. Just then, he notices a woman walking her dog across the street. At the same moment, a truck speeds toward her uncontrollably. The driver has lost control, and the brakes have failed. The accident is only seconds away. Without thinking, Rick jumps forward and forcefully pushes the woman out of the way, saving her life. But he himself gets hit by the truck. People around start screaming in fear. However, when the dust settles, Rick is standing there completely unharmed, without even a scratch on his body. The truck is totally wrecked, yet Rick is perfectly fine. The crowd is stunned by what they see, but then Rick turns around, and a horrifying truth unfolds. The woman he had pushed with all his strength to save accidentally goes flying and lands right inside a nearby wood-cutting machine because of the sheer force, and she dies instantly. Rick stands there frozen in horror. For him, this moment becomes a devastating shock. He has powers now, but he has no idea how to control them, and his very first attempt to be a hero ended in tragedy. When Rick reaches home, he excitedly tells his aunt and uncle that he has gained superpowers, and he believes it all happened because of the dragonfly bite. At first, it sounds unbelievable. So to test him, his uncle suddenly attacks him with a knife, but the moment the knife hits Rick's body, the blade bends instantly. Rick does not get a single scratch. Now even his uncle, who saw the whole thing with his own eyes, is completely convinced that Rick truly possesses extraordinary superhuman abilities. After this, we are shown a glimpse of Rick's childhood. One night when he was just a little boy, he was returning home with his parents after watching a show when a group of robbers suddenly attacked them in the street. Trying bravely to protect his mother and father, little Rick jumped forward to fight, but in the chaos and panic, he clumsily and accidentally caused their deaths himself. It is a guilt he has carried silently in his heart every single day since. As his father lay dying, he handed Rick a ring. With his final breath, his dying father pressed a mysterious ring into young Rick's hand. That same ring is still with Rick to this very day, and it may be hiding the biggest secret of his entire past. In anger and frustration, Rick throws the ring away, but shockingly, it comes flying back to him on its own. Rick cannot understand how this is possible. Just then, Jill arrives. She tells Rick that she is not happy with Lawrence anymore and wants to date him instead. But Rick completely misunderstands what she is trying to say. At that very moment, Lawrence pulls up in his brand new shiny sports car. Jill looks at Rick and says that if he had a car like that, they could have gone on a long drive together. Saying this, she leaves with Lawrence. Rick looks at his old broken bicycle and realizes that he could never afford something like that. Later at home, Rick starts searching on the internet and comes across information about a professor who runs a special school for children with unique superpowers. Determined to discover the truth about his own abilities, Rick decides that he will meet this professor and finally find out how powerful he truly is. The next day, Rick decides that if he wants to impress Jill, he needs a sports car. So he goes to the bank with his aunt and uncle to apply for a loan. But just as they arrive, a group of robbers storms into the bank and starts looting money. Panic spreads everywhere. Rick somehow manages to get his aunt safely outside, but then something strange happens. The robbers are unable to open the bank doors to escape. Rick clearly has the power to stop the robbers and become a hero right then and there. Yet instead of capturing them, out of nervousness and confusion, he secretly helps them get the doors open so they can run away. His instincts as a hero are still hopelessly clumsy. As he steps outside, Rick notices a crowd gathered around a small monkey performing tricks in the middle of the street. Suddenly, he hears his uncle scream in pain. Rick rushes toward him and finds that his uncle is in a very serious condition. Within moments, a medical team arrives and quickly takes his uncle to the hospital. Once again, Rick's life takes a dramatic turn. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou is sitting alone in his office, admiring his reflection in the mirror, clearly pleased with how strong he looks. His assistant walks into the room, but suddenly Uncle Lou begins to feel weak again. Without hesitation, he grabs her wrist and drains her entire life energy. Within seconds, she dies, and Uncle Lou regains his strength. Calmly, he hides her body inside a cabinet. It is now clear that to survive, he is willing to kill absolutely anyone. Back at the hospital, Rick visits his injured uncle. After everything that has happened, he finally decides that he must meet the mysterious professor he read about. He meets Professor Xavier, who runs a secret school for children with special powers. The professor takes Rick to the school, where he sees several kids and adults who look completely normal, yet each of them possesses strange abilities. Some can fly, and some can move objects with their minds. They all seem like real-life superheroes. The professor explains that this hidden school is a safe place where people with powers can learn to understand and control their gifts. Then, Professor Xavier introduces Rick to his wife. Mrs. Xavier is holding what appears to be a doll in her hands, but suddenly the doll raises its hand and throws the professor across the room. That is when Rick realizes it is actually their young son, who also has incredible strength. Mrs. Xavier, clearly irritated, scolds Rick for not even choosing his superhero costume on his first day and orders him to immediately pick an outfit. After this, Rick designs his own superhero suit, a green costume with a Dragonfly logo on it, because he is convinced that his powers came from the Dragonfly bite. For the first time wearing his costume, he climbs up to a rooftop, but suddenly another superhero appears there, wearing an outfit surprisingly similar to Rick's. He claims that this rooftop is his regular spot, and that he sits there every single day. Rick calmly suggests that they can simply share the space. The moment turns slightly awkward but funny at the same time, and this is where Rick's real superhero journey truly begins. The next morning, Rick goes for a job interview at an office, hoping to earn some money. During the interview, he proudly shows the HR manager photos of himself in his superhero costume, trying to impress him. Instead of being impressed, the manager immediately rejects him. At that very moment, alarms start shouting that a university is under attack. Rick quickly realizes that it is his own university. Without saying a word, he suddenly disappears from there. Meanwhile, chaos has erupted at the university. Uncle Lou has now fully transformed into a supervillain, wearing a silver suit. His dangerous plan is to drain the blood of young university students and use it to create a powerful serum. The students scream and run in every direction. Just as he begins his attack, Rick finally arrives at the scene in his green Dragonfly superhero costume, ready to fight for the very first time. Finally, Rick and Uncle Lou come face to face, and an intense fight breaks out between them. Uncle Lou throws sharp blades at Rick, but his suit is so strong that the attacks have no effect at all. Gradually, Uncle Lou realizes that he cannot defeat Rick in this battle. Left with no choice, he escapes from the scene. Nearby, Jill is also present during the chaos. She is deeply impressed by this mysterious superhero who just saved everyone, without ever knowing that behind the mask, it is actually Rick himself. That night, Jill is walking out of a theater when Rick quietly follows her, hoping to finally talk to her. But the moment he stands in front of her, he completely loses his confidence. He becomes shy, nervous, and unable to speak properly. Jill herself starts the conversation and tells him that she was actually hoping Rick would ask her out on a date. Hearing this, Rick gets so overwhelmed that he cannot even respond clearly. Disappointed and confused, Jill walks away, still unaware that the shy boy standing before her is the same superhero who saved her life. A short while later, a group of thugs begins following Jill. Just when the situation starts to look dangerous, the Dragonfly superhero suddenly appears, Rick in his costume. He easily defeats the goons and once again saves her. Jill feels relieved and grateful, thanking her mysterious hero without realizing that behind the mask, it is Rick himself. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou is inside his lab, examining his machine. That is when he discovers a terrifying truth. If he absorbs the life energy of 47,000 people using the machine, he will never die. He will become completely immortal. Without hesitation, Uncle Lou decides that he is willing to sacrifice 47,000 lives to achieve eternal life. Soon after, Rick's aunt invites Jill over for dinner. During the meal, Jill openly admits that she truly admires the Dragonfly superhero because he has saved her twice. She even confesses that she might be falling in love with him. At that very moment, Lawrence arrives, along with Uncle Lou. Meanwhile, Rick secretly slips into his room, still wearing his superhero costume. He is in the middle of changing when Uncle Lou suddenly walks into his room. Rick's identity is almost exposed. Uncle Lou has already begun to suspect that the mysterious Dragonfly superhero is none other than Rick himself, and he has come upstairs specifically to investigate and prove it. He searches the room carefully, but Rick cleverly manages to avoid being caught every single time. Eventually, Uncle Lou leaves, unable to confirm his suspicion for now. Moments later, Uncle Lou joins everyone in the dining room, where Rick is already sitting in his normal clothes. Suddenly, Uncle Lou notices a wound on Rick's hand. He calmly asks how he got that injury. Rick quickly lies, saying he got into a fight with some guy, but Uncle Lou instantly recognizes it. It is the exact wound caused by the blade he had thrown at the Dragonfly superhero. At that moment, all his doubts disappear. He is now completely certain that Rick is the masked hero. Suddenly, the atmosphere completely changes. Uncle Lou reveals his true supervillain form. Now he is fully convinced that Rick is his enemy. At the same time, Rick realizes that Uncle Lou has not come just to confirm the truth. He has come to kill everyone. Rick tries to protect Jill and himself, but in panic, he loses his balance, falls down, and gets knocked unconscious. In the middle of this chaos, Uncle Lou kills Rick's aunt. Sometime later, Rick reaches the hospital. He wants to tell his uncle the painful truth that his wife is no longer alive. However, the doctors warn him that his uncle's condition is extremely critical and that any shocking news could be fatal. Unfortunately, another careless doctor directly reveals the news to his uncle. Hearing this, Rick's uncle is completely shattered. A few days later, we see Rick sitting silently at home. After his aunt's death, he is emotionally broken. He barely speaks, remains lost in sadness, and cannot focus on anything at all. Soon, his uncle arrives there along with Trey. His uncle hands him back the same ring and reminds him of its true meaning. He tells Rick that he is a superhero and that superheroes do not give up. Their duty is to save people, no matter how difficult the situation becomes. He also explains that the supervillain is planning to kill thousands of people and that the only one who can stop him is Rick. Rick admits that he wants to help others, but that every time he tries to do something good, everything goes wrong. Just then, news flashes on the television about a massive convention happening in the city. With thousands of people gathered in one single place, everyone immediately understands that such a huge event would be the absolute perfect target for a supervillain who needs to drain the life energy of tens of thousands of people. Without wasting any time, they rush toward the convention center. Uncle Lou is already there. Rick still has no idea that he is the true villain. He directly asks Uncle Lou who the supervillain is. Calmly lying, Uncle Lou points toward a monk standing on the stage and says, "That's the supervillain." Believing him without question, Rick quickly changes into his costume and begins attacking the innocent monk. Taking advantage of the confusion, Uncle Lou slips away and finally appears in his real supervillain form. Now the real battle begins. Uncle Lou, at the peak of his powers, launches a brutal attack on Rick and brings the entire roof crashing down on top of him. Somehow, Rick survives and pushes the roof upward with all his strength, but it falls back again, trapping him underneath. Determined to finish him, the supervillain hurls sharp blades toward Rick. At the very last second, Jill runs forward and stands in front of him. She has fallen in love with the Dragonfly superhero, and without any hesitation, she risks her own life to protect him. The blades strike Jill, leaving her badly injured. Seeing the girl he loves lying wounded on the ground because she tried to protect him, something inside Rick finally explodes with rage and purpose. In that instant, the clumsy joke of a boy is gone, and a real hero takes his place. He lifts her up and rushes to the rooftop, where Uncle Lou has already activated his machine and is draining the life energy of innocent people. Gathering every ounce of courage, Rick moves toward the machine. Using its very own power, he manages to restore Jill's life. Slowly, her breathing returns, but Rick realizes there is almost no time left. In just a few seconds, the supervillain will become immortal, and if that happens, the entire world will be in danger. Blades continue flying toward him, yet Rick keeps moving forward without fear. With one final surge of strength, he reaches Uncle Lou and delivers his last attack, destroying the machine itself. A massive explosion shakes everything, and with the machine's destruction, the supervillain's reign finally comes to an end. After the blast, Rick and Jill begin falling from the rooftop. As they fall, Jill notices the ring on Rick's hand. The same ring he always wore. In that instant, she understands the truth. The Dragonfly superhero was Rick all along. She realizes that becoming a true hero is not about strength or a costume. A real hero is simply someone who chooses to stand up and do the right thing at the right moment, no matter how weak, scared, or broken he may feel inside. Rick was never the strongest or the coolest, but in the end, he found the courage that truly matters. And with that, Rick's crazy, hilarious, and surprisingly emotional journey finally comes to an end.